Show, Jake Hari and Adam Scher breaking down this 8-game slate. Adam, what's up? How's your weekend?
It was pretty good. I got to go to the Nationals game on Friday. Yeah, Friday, so that was fun. Had a decent weekend at DFS. How about you?
Good, good. Yeah, I was doing shows and was playing all the different sports, MMA. Uh, what else did I play? NBA Showdown, NASCAR, all the different stuff. So yeah, it was a good weekend. Didn't bank in any new sports, but played a lot of DFS, so that was nice. Uh, I guess depending on who you talk to, but it looks like Tom, our our boss Tom, had a pretty good weekend, especially last night. I've got lineup study pulled up, or I guess yesterday afternoon. Looking at using lineup study, which you guys can get using FC Pro. You can get that through us actually. You can see what actually Tom did, and actually now that I'm looking at it more, I see that he only used 50 lineups out of 150 in the 300K pitchers mound, 100K to first. So as you guys can see, he took that down by a pretty good margin actually. 6 points. Anything weird that you're seeing there based on Tom's lineups, Adam?
No, not yet. Looks like a lot of 5-2, 5-3 stacks, or just 5X, which I think is pretty standard. Had some 4-3s mixed in. The one that took it down was the 5-2 Colorado Toronto, which I'm trying to all the slates are like running together in my head. But Colorado was facing Eichhoff in Philly. I thought that was a pretty interesting game to target too, just because it was summer in Philly. They came in at like no ownership. McMahon I think was like 1% owned. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a pretty interesting game to target.
Yeah, it was. He only used five mans actually. Oh no, he used one Boston four man, but I wonder if that's a 5-3 with the Boston with Sale. Actually, no, he did use a 4-3, but that was it. Basically, all five man stacks for his 50 in the 300K pitcher's mound. So he does like using the five mans. I think even more than Alex. Alex uses literally every different type of stack, probably because he crunches so many lineups. But yeah, not a bad day for Tom last night. I guess late yesterday afternoon. You see some of the regulars up there. It looks like it was a pretty good day for the pros. Brick 75, Chipotle Attic, Piano Club. Some pretty familiar names. I saw Alex somewhere in here. I don't think he performed that well in this tournament, but I'm sure there were others where he did perform a ton better. What was the tournament you were in the other day? We can go to that quickly. That you took down. Is that online study or is
whatever it was whatever like the second version of the $15 on DraftKings Saturday afternoon was.
All right, let's see if I can find that quick. 15. Oh wait, it was a $15 tournament.
Yeah, it was like a
3K to
I don't
first.
remember.
There it is.
It was only like 3K up top, so
There you
it's
go.
probably like a 30.
Shit my money right there. Pretty decent profit. That was the max, right? 35 lineups. Yeah, 35 max.
Yeah, it was 150 max in like the first tournament and then 35 in the second.
And you took it down with Philly St. Louis 5-3.
Yeah, had a lot of Cardinals stacks that day.
Yeah, no kidding. A lot of red. Cardinals and Phillies basically
Yeah.
all over. So yeah, those are just some of these things you guys can use with lineup study. We're going to start doing more segments at the beginning of shows just to kind of recap the night, and maybe some towards the end we can see what certain pros or certain players, subscribers, whatever, are doing on slates of the size for the day. So today would be an 8-game slate. We are presented by Yahoo Fantasy. We do really enjoy playing over on Yahoo. Some of the things that we like about them are there's less management fees, less rake, as some people call it. There's less sharks. You can't use CSV edit, so it takes a little bit more time, a little bit more love and care to enter your lineups. And some people aren't going to do that, especially the guys that are playing tens of thousands of dollars a night. So if we just really like playing on Yahoo, please go support them. Here is the link. I'll post it in chat right now. Promo code AWESEMO gets you 30 Yahoo Sports rewards points. What about these games today, Adam? What are you seeing just overall Anything you want to talk about from an ownership perspective? I don't know if you've given that a look yet.
I haven't dug into it too much yet, but just kind of scrolling through the pitching, it seems like a pretty interesting slate. Limited, true aces, but a lot of just pretty talented pitchers. So my first thought on slates like this is that I'm always tempted. Like, part of me wants to not stack as much because there are so many good pitchers, and then the other part of me is kind of like one or two of the pitchers are going to blow up, and I don't really want one-offs against them. So I think it's kind of on slates like this more important to be stacking as much as you can and correlating your lineups as much as possible, because it's not like there's a bunch of different spots that we would want to attack with one-offs anyway.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I'm always of the mindset you just try to stack. Especially on if this was like a 4 or 5 game slate, I probably wouldn't want to stack as much, but 8 games, it feels like there's going to be an outlier performance, at least in a couple of these games. I mean, the Twins are on the slate. They're scoring like 12 runs a game, it seems like. And we've got some pitchers that are going to get ownership that can be volatile. So should be a pretty fun slate. One more thing. I know we're presented by Yahoo, but the tournament on DraftKings, I saw you sent out a tweet about that. You just want to kind of give the people your take on what DraftKings is doing today with the $6.
No, I mean, it's frustrating from a player's perspective, especially if you're someone that, if you're like a max entry player that doesn't play like the higher stakes, it's really frustrating because like you lower the entry fee to $6, and so you're only getting $900 in play or whatever in that tournament, and then 33% the first in a $58,000 tournament. It's just insane. It's just frustrating what the sites are doing with the payout structures. It's not like it's not like this is an outlier. Like they're terrible anyway. But it's just, I don't know. It's just frustrating. Like, I get why they do it because the top heavy prize draws people in and everything. But from a sustainability standpoint and keeping people playing DFS for more than like a month, then I think it's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it's super frustrating to me too. So you play higher stakes than me, obviously. So I think you said you're going to max it still?
Yeah.
Just because there's not very many options. Like, there's no other options in that range. They took away the $4. Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing. There's no 150 max between $6 and I think $66. So if you view it as just 150 lineups, there's nothing between a $900 entry and
66 cents,
like $10,000 entry.
Yeah. Yep. So they've got the mini max. That's basically the tournament that I play quite a bit over there. But I will when they run these $5 and $6 tournaments, I like to get in them and max them, but not when it's 100K to first, 25K to second. So luckily you don't have to deal with that on Yahoo. Smaller first place prizes. But that's where I'll be taking a lot of my volume tonight, just because it's incredibly better payout structures. I mean, there's just no way around it. You're not going to win 100K, but you're probably not winning 100K either with however many thousands of entries that DraftKings tournament has.
Yeah, not a coincidence that today's the day I will finally stop being lazy and I'll build out some Yahoo stuff and start playing more over there like I should.
Yep. All right, let's get into these games. Let's start with the Yankees and the Orioles. We've got J.A. Happ and Andrew Cashner on the mound. Looks like a 5.6 implied total for the Yankees, 4 for the Orioles. Happ at 8K on DraftKings, Cashner at just 5,600. I would imagine Happ is going to be chalky. I don't know off the top of my head, but he's only got one game this year with over 5 strikeouts, which I thought was a little bit interesting. Right now he is at just 13% ownership on DraftKings. On Yahoo, he is under 10. Wow. So maybe not as chalky as I thought. But anything that's jumping off here for either of these pitchers?
I mean, the strikeouts for Happ, like you said, have just been disappointing this season. He's someone that I'll have to dig into more to see if I can figure out a reason why, because he's always been like a difficult pitcher for me to really understand, because he's just so different than most pitchers. He doesn't have a great fastball, yet he throws it a ton and gets swings and misses on it normally. So a lot of it, I think, with him comes down to location. So I want to dig into Brooks baseball and heat maps on there and see if I can figure out what's going on. But I think that the price tag at 8K is reasonable for sure. Obviously, the strikeouts haven't been there this year, like we said, but he still has a track record of being a pretty decent strikeout guy, and you're getting him at an affordable price point where even if his strikeouts are still down, if he can just get 6 or 7 innings against the Orioles, then he's going to pay off that price tag anyway. and it's not like it's an overly intimidating lineup. So if his ownership is down, I kind of have interest in getting there. If it comes back up, then I'm more interested in getting to some of the right-handed power from the Orioles.
I just feel like at that price, especially as people go throughout the day, maybe there aren't a ton of like perfect pitching options here. Like you've got Darvish in that range, Arrieta, but those guys both have tough matchups. And then Peacock, but like where else are people going to go? They're not going to play Odorizzi, I would guess, against the Angels. Andrew Suarez, I don't know. There's just not a lot of guys you can argue for in this range. So I would imagine his ownership comes up a little bit, and then I'll probably come underweight. If that doesn't hold true, if he's down there in the teens, then I would gladly have a good amount of hap here just because the Orioles strike out so much. How about hitting here? Are we targeting a bunch of Yankees against Cashner?
Yeah, Cashner's been better this year than last year, but it would have been really, really difficult to be worse. So even though he has made some improvements, you're still getting a pitcher that is certainly far from a good pitcher. You're getting a weak Baltimore bullpen, and you have the Yankees, trending towards being a little bit healthier now. Tons of power, at least through like the middle parts of that lineup. You have Aaron Hicks back. You still have Voit, Sanchez, Torres, Urshela's, obviously hitting really well this year. So a lot of interest in the Yankees here just because I don't expect Cashner to be good consistently.
Yep. Same here. And then any Orioles bats you're targeting, I know we've liked Mancini quite a bit this year, but $5K on DraftKings, can you pay that price for him? And then just talk about any other Orioles bats you're targeting here.
Yeah, I mean, 5K for Mancini is pretty steep. Like, if he ends up in some lineups, then good. He's a good hitter, but I don't really think of him as a 5K hitter. I think probably the most appealing price tags on the Orioles are VR and Renato Nunez. Nunez obviously is not a perfect hitter, but he does have some power, can drive the ball, and Hap will give up home runs. And then VR, just gives you a nice speed and some power combination, and his price tag is finally starting to come back down after his really strong starts of the year just pushed it, inflated it higher than it should be.
Sure. All right. We don't have the top stack tool updated just yet. The rankings and projections aren't out. So that's what I've been basing a lot of my research off of. I know you've been looking more and more at the top stack tool, right?
Yeah. I'm still trying to kind of figure out how to implement it into my process. I have some ideas. I just really need to spend the time in lineup rewind and see what I end up with. But it's something that even if I haven't incorporated it into my spreadsheet yet, I think it's really useful just to kind of look at and have an idea of where you would like your stacks to be getting to, because it does such a good job of showing you which stacks are under-owned and over-owned. And I think like if you're hand building lineups, it's a good tool probably to use just from a mental standpoint, because like if you take like the Indians yesterday, just because I mean obviously they came through, but the first example I can think of just a really highly owned team because of price points, if you are trying to like hand build lineups, it can be really tough to get away from chalky teams like that. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking at the stacks tool, you actually can get the numbers in front of you saying like, okay, Cleveland comes through a ton, but they're still over-owned here, so I should go to X, Y, and Z team. So I think it's useful for that purpose.
Right. Yeah, I just love the tool. It's my favorite thing on the site. My new favorite thing, obviously, just like incorporates the ownership projections and just basically Alex's projections as far as how often that team comes through, like you said. So we have it for FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. So I'll definitely be using it for especially Yahoo tonight when I make my way over there. Let's go to the Nationals and the Mets. We've got Patrick Corbin against Andrew Gagnon. I do recognize that guy's name. I don't know that I've looked him up a ton. I think he started maybe once last year. Anyways, Corbin versus Gagnon. There's no way I'm saying that right? No implied totals yet for this game.
I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I have no clue. I don't think he's going to go very deep though. Is the point here? There's no totals for this game, so who knows if he's even starting or if this is just going to be a straight bullpen game for the Mets. Corbin is the most expensive pitcher on the slate. Hard to argue on this slate of pitching though. What do you see here with Corbin versus the Mets?
Yeah, I really like Corbin. His strikeouts, down a little bit this year, but still at 29.2%. He has a 3.55 xFIP. Like everything for him looks good. And now you're getting a Mets lineup that for one, most of the good hitters on the Mets are left-handed, and for two, Michael Conforto is on the injured list. So it's an even weaker lineup. You look at their projected lineup, and you have Peter Alonso, who's a good hitter. And then beyond that, you just have so many strikeouts here with guys like J.D. Davis, Carlos Gomez, Ahmed Rosario, Juan Lagares, a pitcher. There's just massive, massive upside here for Patrick Corbin. He is expensive, but I don't think he's prohibitively priced. So I like Corbin quite a bit.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7, and 8 innings in his last 4 starts. So we're looking for the complete game shutout to continue that streak, and just showcasing his strikeout stuff his last couple starts. Corbin is so. There's really nothing holding me back from him here. I know he's going to be chalky, but for pitching in general, I don't mind going to chalky pitchers. 36% on Yahoo, 36% on DraftKings as well right now. So not chalky enough for me to actually worry about rostering Corbin on really any site. So, he's probably going to be my number one guy once we get closer to lock. Have you done any researching on this guy going for the Mets or expected to go for the Mets?
19.2% strikeout percentage this season in 11 innings out of the bullpen for the Mets. Made 3 starts at AAA, 17.2 innings pitched there, struck out 20%. Low walk percentage, not a lot of strikeouts, doesn't seem particularly good.
Yeah.
Steamer projection, where Steamer's like FIP projections like a half run lower than every other projection system.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is weird, but whatever. He's thrown 23 major league innings. He has struck out like 16% of hitters. He has a 5.06 xFIP over those 23 innings. Point being, he's just, one, I don't think he goes deep into the game, like you said, and two, I don't think he's particularly good.
I also don't think he's in the pool on DraftKings unless he's under a different name. Oh yeah, he is. Drew Gagnon. They're saying Gagnon in chat. 7,100 on DraftKings. I still don't think he's going to be a guy I get to unless for some reason we have him projected very highly, because those are the projections I use. Then I would get to him, but I doubt I do against the Nats here. I'm probably going to be getting to more like Soto and Eaton, who are both pretty cheap, 4,200 and 3,700. Any other guys for the Nats stick out to you, or the full stack?
Those are the two. Turner, obviously, you get some stolen base upside at the top. Gomes gives you a really, really cheap catcher option, but Soto is the one that really stands out. And then, everyone else kind of falls in line behind him.
Yep, would agree with that. Do we have anything else we need to talk about here before we move on?
I don't think so.
All right, cool. Let's go to the Phillies and the Cubs. We have Jake Arrieta and Yu Darvish. Battle of the frauds here. Implied totals, it looks like 4 going to the Phillies, 4.6 to the Cubs. This game being played in Wrigley, or whether it can play a big factor. It's 50 degrees, a little bit of wind blowing in. $7,800 for Arrieta, $8,600 for Darvish. On Yahoo, looks like they are $40 and $36 for Darvish. Probably more in play over there. Do you like either one of these pitchers? What do you think about these guys in general? Because I absolutely hate them.
Yeah, so do I. Kind of like entirely different ways too. Arrieta, I think, is a decent pitcher as far as getting outs and limiting runs, but the strikeout stuff just isn't there, especially against lefties. He's missing like 0 bats this year. And then Darvish on the other side, the strikeout stuff is still there, but the guy just has no idea where the ball is going. He's walked 17% of hitters this year. He even before his injury, he was starting to have trouble with home runs, and that hasn't gone anywhere. He's allowed 1.7 home runs per 9, which happens when you're behind in counts against everyone you face. So, like, Darvish at least has a ceiling, but I think that he just blows up a ton. And then Arrieta, I think, is less likely to blow up, but he also just has a limited ceiling unless you're getting like a complete game out of him.
Darvish has 4+ walks in 6 out of his 9 starts so far this season. If you're walking guys against the Phillies, you're going to be in huge, huge trouble, even in a bad weather game in Wrigley. Are you looking more
they
toward...
drive up. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
They drive up pitch counts anyway, so that makes it even scarier for Darvish.
Yeah, one of the more patient teams, right? So I'm assuming we're looking at hitters. Which team are you looking at more?
More so at the Phillies. The weather here does suck, like you said, so that takes some appeal away. But the Phillies, especially on DraftKings, are really reasonably priced. They are all, or for the most part, they're down around like the 4K range. They're a little bit more expensive relatively on Yahoo, so not quite as appealing there. But at their DraftKings prices, I care a little bit less about the weather just because they're priced for it. It seems like how often do you get Rhys Hoskins at $4,100, Bryce Harper at 4K, McCutcheon's at 3,800, Real Muto's 3,700. Like these are all rock bottom price points for these guys. It's like they priced him for Yu Darvish when Yu Darvish was a good pitcher or something. So I think that Philadelphia has a ton of upside, and with their prices where they are, you should be able to get Corbin and or some good one-offs around them.
Yeah, if their ownerships also stay this low, then I have a hard time seeing how Philly isn't like a top 3 stack for me. Right now we've got Harper in the mid-teens, and then everyone else is 10 or below with like 5 out of the 9 guys or 8 hitters below 5% on DraftKings right now. So if their prices are going to be this low, going up against a guy who's got walk issues, which is it's not great individually for hitters, but for a stack, like you'd love a couple extra walks, get more guys on base, have pitchers pitch in high pressure situations, and then get to face guys like Hoskins, Harper, McCutcheon, Real Muto, one of the best hitting catchers. So I love how the stack sets up here, and I hope Philly's ownership stays pretty low. How about the Cubs?
Yep, totally.
How about the Cubs versus Arrieta here? Super expensive for some of these guys on Yahoo. Bryant 27, Rizzo 23, Baez 22. But then you got some value options with Schwarber 13, Descalso at 7, and Hayward at 9.
Yeah, I think Schwarber leading off is the most appealing. We know that he has a ton of power. We know he has contact issues. But as I had mentioned before, Arrieta is just not missing bats against lefties whatsoever this year. So that plays to Schwarber's strengths. And he's just cheap enough that, again, the weather is a secondary factor because you're just getting a lot of home run upside from a really cheap bat. Rizzo is affordable, but, again, a little bit more expensive. Chris Bryant and Baez are both really expensive. I think Schwarber's the one that really stands out to me as someone that I'd like to be getting as a one-off here against Arrieta.
Yep, I like that a lot. Just super cheap, leading off, extra plate appearances. Yeah, I think it's going to be basically all bats for me. I don't think I'm going to get to really either side on pitching here. These guys both make me really nervous. And looking at where these guys are at for ownership, Darvish is actually coming in at over 20% on Yahoo. He is, let's see here, on DraftKings, Darvish is at over 20% as well. And then Arrieta is, man, he's in the mid-teens as well. I don't like any of that. So,
if I took a chance on one of the pitchers, I'd rather get to Darvish just because he's the one that's more likely to go out there, strike out 10 guys, and score a ton of points.
Yeah, I mean, he had 11 strikeouts in his last outing with no walks. So at least he's capable of that. But how often does that actually happen against a good team like Philadelphia?
Right.
All right, Seattle and Texas. This is going to be a popular one for a number of different reasons. We have Mike Leake on the mound against Mike Minor. 4.8 implied total for the Mariners, which is good. 5.8 for the Rangers, which is even better. Looks like Rangers are the chalkiest stack right now on DraftKings and probably on every site. 22-degree wind blowing in, 22 mile per hour wind blowing in Texas. I don't think that matters very much in that stadium, though. 87 degrees, not that humid, but looks like a hitter's paradise here in Texas. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, really good hitting conditions. I mean, you're talking about almost 40 degrees warmer than the last game that we talked about with the Cubs and Phillies, and obviously a favorable ballpark for power. You have Mike Minor, who is a good pitcher, facing a Seattle team that does have a lot of right-handed power in their lineup, and it's affordably priced. So it's a spot where I'm still willing to take a chance on some of these guys, even though I do have a ton of respect for Minor. But on the other side, you have Mike Leake, who I don't have a ton of respect for. He has always been a guy who doesn't miss bats. He relies on command to get weak contact, but that hasn't really been the case for him this year. He is getting older. Maybe he's just not particularly good anymore, and he's getting hit pretty hard. You're talking about a Texas team that has a lot of swings and misses in their lineup and a ton of power top to bottom. For they're not cheap, but I don't think that they're really overpriced either. Joey Gallo is really expensive, but he's also really good, and he actually has increased upside here because Leak does work in the strike zone. Well, one of the reasons, or the main reason, that Gallo's gotten even better this year than in the past is that he's become even more disciplined as a hitter. He's walking like 20% of the time. I don't expect Leak to be walking him, and that means the Gallo's going to be hitting the ball, which gives him more upside. So Texas, they're popular, but I think it's for very good reason.
Yeah, they're going to be the most popular stack of the night, I would think. And actually, just as I refreshed, the Mariners went up to a 5 total, so they went up 0.2 runs, and the Rangers went up 0.3 to 6.1. So the totals are rising here for both teams, expected to be heavily favoring the hitters. I don't want to target Minor a ton. Seems like it hasn't been a profitable strategy in general. But I'm all over these Rangers. You mentioned Leak being markedly worse so far this season. And then the Mariners bullpen, I didn't realize how sneaky bad it's been. The second highest whip, which obviously isn't everything, but also the second highest walk percentage as well. And you've just got a bunch of Rangers with a ton of power. Leak, a guy who's not going to walk a ton of guys. So there's going to be balls in play, you would think. And then a subpar bullpen behind Leak. So hard to argue with the Rangers as a number one stack outside of ownership, I would think, right?
Yeah, totally agree with that. Mariners also bottom 10 xFIP. They were used a bit over the weekend against the Twins as well. So, yeah. I mean, if you're looking at guys that haven't pitched in the last couple of days, it's basically David McKay, Connor Sadzek, and Anthony Swarzak. Not exactly guys that you're particularly scared of coming in early.
Yeah. All right. Go Rangers chalk, I suppose. All right, let's go to the White Sox and the Astros. We have no implied totals yet for this game. I would imagine we see a pretty healthy one from Houston. So this was going to be a stack that I think is going to come in under owned according to the top stack tool, just because they're so heavily priced on DraftKings. Springer 5,800, as you see, 5,600 for Bregman and Brantley, and then 5,200 for Correa. So the parts you'd like to get in for Houston are going to be tougher to get in. So I think optimizers are just going to prioritize some of these Rangers bats and probably these Mariners bats. Do you see Houston going a little bit under owned here?
Yeah, do we have a pitcher for the White Sox yet?
We don't, but
okay.
Let's see here.
I don't think it matters a lot, but that's something else that I think could just keep their ownership down a bit. It's hard to project a team when you don't know who's pitching against them, and the later in the day that we get a confirmed pitcher for the White Sox, I would expect that you see the Astros go down a bit, but should be a nice spot for them. They had a tough matchup with Boston over the weekend. Faced some tough pitching there. White Sox don't exactly have anything that is going to scare you. And like you said, they're expensive. But if they are going to be markedly lower in ownership than the Rangers are, they certainly have just as much upside.
So this was like the same spot. I think it was on Saturday. Yeah, I was doing the show with EMAC, and there was a team that was around a similar implied total or maybe even a little bit higher. And Houston was coming in on the top stack tool as the most under-owned stack by like 10%. I think they had a 14% chance of being the top stack, and they had a 4% ownership share on DK, and they scored like 8 runs. But they were just really hard to fit in. Even when trying to fit them in, I couldn't really get to a ton of Astros, even though I got a little bit overweight. So I wonder if that's going to be the case here. If Reddick's in the 2 spot, maybe it makes it a little bit easier to fit in. Who would he be in with? So Reddick, okay, we've got him in the 8 spot, so that must have been the last time they were against a righty. And then I guess he would just be slotted up in the lineup, so that'd be a huge lineup bump if he is up there. I can't find anything on a White Sox pitcher, but it's going to be Brad Peacock. We know that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. What are we doing with Peacock against the strikeout-heavy White Sox here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty nice spot for him. A lot will depend on what the White Sox lineup looks like. He's just much better against righties than he is against lefties. You're probably going to have 3 lefties in the top 4 hitters, which is a little bit scary, and probably like 5 overall. But I still think it's an okay spot. I don't think I'll have him ahead of, like Mike Soroka in San Francisco. Probably going to be tough for me to get there. But I do think that there's plenty of upside. I kind of view him similarly to Darvish, except for the matchups more appealing. So maybe have him ahead of Darvish.
Yeah, I think I would have Peacock ahead of Darvish. Like, yeah, Moncada and Alonso up there. Pretty scary bats for Peacock, a guy who can't really get swings and misses versus lefties. He's just a completely different pitcher, lefty versus righty. So I agree with you. It's going to depend on the lineup. Right now, it looks like he's going to be pretty chalky, nearly 30% on DraftKings. But I'm interested to hear your take on Soroka when we get to that game. You said because he's going to be about half the ownership we have right now of Peacock, so I'm sure you're going to like that one. And then the other guy that's sneaking up there in terms of being a chalky SP1/SP2 is Luke Weaver, who I know you've been digging into quite a bit lately. So maybe a few more options than it seemed at first for me, at least. Anything more we should talk about before we move on?
Just, I guess, going back to that Houston stack, you had mentioned them being expensive, and I was thinking about it because they are a team that I haven't been getting to as much as I would like recently. And I think what it is that for a while they were a really appealing stack because you had the expensive guys at the top with like Bregman, Correa, but then you got all this cheap value at the bottom with Diaz and Chirinos and Marisnik, and you could get power from the bottom of the lineup. But all those guys are expensive now too, so it just makes them so much harder to get as a 5-man stack.
Yeah, so I'm trying to build one right now quick on Lineup Builder. I plugged in Bregman, Correa, Springer, Brantley, and then Tyler White for some salary relief. And I plugged in Peacock as well as like the SP1. And you're looking at 3,850 left for a starting pitcher, catcher, second base, and outfield. So you'd have to punt basically every other spot. So that's why it's going to be difficult to fit him in.
Yeah, it probably ends up being more of like a 3-man stack for me.
Yeah.
Or one-off.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, let's go to, we got Atlanta and San Francisco. Man, a bunch of West Coast games tonight. Atlanta, San Francisco, Mike Soroka and Andrew Suarez going for their respective teams. We have a 4 implied total for the Braves, 3.6 for the Giants. Let's hear your take on Soroka, $9,200, not getting a ton of ownership right now on DraftKings.
I just think he's a good pitcher, and he's in the best pitcher spark that you can be in. He's facing a Giants team that doesn't have much power, isn't a very productive offense. I think that the price tag is a little bit higher than ideally I would like because he's not a super high strikeout pitcher. He struck out like 22.1% of hitters so far this year. He's more of a command guy than, someone that is likely to go out there and strike out like 10 guys. But I just think it's a good spot for him. He should be able to get through innings. Even if he's not racking up strikeouts, he should probably be relatively efficient in the spot. I don't think the Giants are that intimidating. So if he is going to come in at lower ownership, you have a very favorable park, you have a good pitcher. I think that it's just a pretty appealing spot.
Yep. Giants, they're basically below average in every category. Versus righties so far this season, 23.4% K rate, 94 WRC plus hundreds average in that statistic, and then their on-base percentage is bottom 6 in the MLB at just over 300. So they're just not good against righties, and you can see why. I mean, there's Belt, and then there's not really a ton else after that for me. So Soroka's a guy I'm fine with. Yeah, the price was the thing that was scaring me off a little bit, but I guess the park kind of makes up for that, and then a solid matchup against the Giants. What about Suarez at 7,800? I believe this is his first start of the season. Is that right? Yeah, first start of the season.
I think so. I'm double checking now, but I don't think he's made a start this year.
Yeah. He's a guy who I targeted against a ton last year, and it seemed like it never worked out. And just a 4 implied total, I'm guessing he's going to project out okay enough for me to actually get to some of him, but I don't really like it. I hate targeting against the Braves. So, do you see anything with Suarez versus the Atlanta Braves?
I don't really want to get to him against the Braves. Obviously, it's a good park, but the Braves are just a really scary team offensively, and Suarez isn't, a high strikeout guy. Last year, he threw like 160 innings with the Giants, struck out 19.6%. This year, in 6 or 7 starts at AAA, he struck out 16.9%. You do have, right-handed power in this lineup. The park hurts, but getting to like a $4,600 Acuna, 4K Swanson, 4K Austin Riley, like Donaldson's 4,300. I think that getting to some of these guys gives you a little bit of salary relief while also giving you a ton of upside. So not my favorite stack or anything. Like if I'm between teams with a 4 implied run total, I'd rather get to the Phillies than the Braves. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a pretty scary spot for Suarez, on a spot you could at least see a couple of home runs for Atlanta.
Yep. Yeah, I think Atlanta's going to be a team I go to as 2 and 3 mint stacks because, like you mentioned, there's Freeman at 5,100, but like Acuna is probably underpriced if he's leading off versus Suarez, even in that park. And then you mentioned Riley. I like Tyler Flowers for 3,500. So I'm definitely going to get to some Braves. I don't know if they're going to be like a 5-man stack for me very often. I am interested to see where I end up on Andrew Suarez. So I'll know that by time we get to live before lock. I think it's me and Josh tonight. So I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of Andrew Suarez. Josh hates the Braves, so I'm sure he'll be all over Suarez at 7,800. So that'll be an interesting discussion point. Any Giants bats? I kind of scooted past them, but do you have anyone in particular you're targeting?
No, I agreed with your take on the Giants offense. It's Brandon Belt and then basically nothing. And I don't really feel the need to get the Belt against Soroka on this slate.
All right, perfect.
Although 3,800 for Belt is really nice, but there are just some really appealing price tags anyway.
What about Crawford? What about Crawford for 2,800? He's like priced below 3K all the time. Is he a guy you get to ever?
Yeah. I mean, I think he sucks, but he's useful in some lineups, just as, taking a 0 at hitter, you can still win tournaments. And obviously he's not a guaranteed 0. So in some lineups, like you're getting Corbin plus some expensive bats and you have to go to Brandon Crawford, it's not the end of the world. But he's not someone that I'm, going to talk up as someone that I'm like looking to get into lineups.
Yeah, I think Tom actually took a 0 in his 100K lineup. Daniel Murphy had a 0, so you're not wrong about taking a 0 and still being able to win a good chunk of money. All right, let's go to the Twins.
I think I took one in one of my wins earlier.
You did? The 50K win?
I think. What'd you say?
The 50K win last week?
Yeah. The one in April, I think I took a 0 from like Ryan O'Hearn.
Oh, classic. That's Laffy's boy, isn't it? O'Hearn?
Yeah. I was messaging Laffy like the entire last 3 innings of the game, just bitching about him.
Yeah, he's a guy I like. A lot of hard contact, but he also can't really make contact very often.
Yeah.
All right, Twins and Angels. We've got a 4.4 implied total for the Twins, 4.7 for the Angels. Jake Odorizzi and Taylor Cole. I believe it's going to be a bullpen game. I think it's going to be Pena coming in. I believe that's what Fangraphs had as kind of their starting guy. Do you have Pena going for the Angels?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going off Fangraphs list, but they've been using him as the long reliever, so I think this is his turn.
The question is, can we use any pitchers against either of these two teams?
Not really. The Twins are just really good and tough to strike out, and then the Angels are just really, really tough to strike out. So I'm not looking to pitching here. The park plays a little bit better for power than it did in the past, especially left-handed power with them lowering the wall in right field. You have a ton of left-handed power on the Twins. Pena is much better against righties than he is lefties, so it's a pretty scary spot for him. I like getting to the Twins. They're reasonably priced. They're really good, and it's an okay spot against Pena. And then on the other side, Odorizzi's been really, really good this year, striking out a ton of guys. He has a 24.1% strikeout percentage, but I like getting to some of these Angels bats because, for one, I don't totally buy into Odorizzi because a lot of his plate discipline numbers are just, I think, unsustainably low as far as he's, getting a ton of swings and misses in the strike zone, which is something that he's never really done before. There's nothing I can find different about his pitches that are getting those swings and misses. So I think you see Odorizzi kind of regress going forward, but either way, it's an Angels team that doesn't strike out, and you get, right-handed power from Trout. You get Shohei Ohtani, who should never be $4,000 against anyone, but certainly not against a pitcher like Odorizzi, who is not, like a stud pitcher or anything. So those two in particular are really nice, and then you can mix in, whoever else.
I think there's a good chance Ohtani's my highest owned bat on basically every site. Just like you said, should never be priced at 4K. And it's not like he hasn't had the results of late. He just homered a couple times over the weekend, I'm pretty sure. So I don't know what's going on with his with his price on DraftKings algorithm, but I guess I'll just take advantage for another day. I can't really play either of these pitchers. These teams are just so good. Well, they're good in different ways, like you mentioned, the Twins. They don't strike out a ton, and then they just have a ton of power, as they've showed in recent days. And then the Angels, I think they have a sub 14% K rate so far against righties.
Something like that.
Yeah, me and Emac were looking this up the other day. They're at 14 even. A 131 WRC plus versus right-handed pitching. That is the tied for the highest with the Astros on the season. So probably no pitching for me here. What is Pena's price? I guess I haven't looked at him just yet. I just assumed I wouldn't get to him. But do you have Pena's price in front of you?
I don't. He's been in like the 7K range.
Yeah, unless he was like...
And assuming he's there.
Yeah, unless he was like 6K, I don't think I would be considering him too much here. So probably going to be stacking both sides of this, or at least mini stacking with the Angels. Trout, Ohtani, mini stack. Can't really do much better than that. Yeah, I guess that's really all we've got for this game, unless you have anything more. Otherwise, we can get to the last game of the slate.
Nope. Good for the last one.
Diamondbacks and Padres, we have a 3.3 implied total for Arizona, 3.8 for the Padres. Luke Weaver and Chris Paddock going for their teams. We've got Weaver at 8,500, Paddock at 9,500. Both of these guys getting ownership on DraftKings. Do you prefer one to the other?
I prefer Weaver just because he's a little bit cheaper and he has the matchup with the Padres, who they have a lot of power in their lineup, but also a lot of strikeouts. I do buy into some of the stuff Weaver's doing this year. His secondary pitches have been better. He's struck out 26% of hitters, only walking 5.7%. He's, I think, been legitimately good. And he's someone who, when he first came up with the Cardinals, I thought was one of the most overrated pitchers by the DFS community that we had in a while. So I've changed my tune on him with some changes that he's made this year. And I think that the price tag's perfect. I think that the matchup's really good. I think the park's fine. So I expect Weaver to be one of my highest owned pitchers.
I think so as well. He's always like projected out really well. Like Vegas has a low implied total always against him. It seems like even when he wasn't good, even when he wasn't missing a lot of bats. So now that he's actually missing bats and the implied totals stay low against him, under 4, I think he's one of the better options for the day, point per dollar. There's not like a ton of guys in the 7 or 6K range that you can go to tonight anyways. So I'm probably going to be doing a lot of like dual 8K, 9K pitchers. And so I hope I can get to some Astros, but the more and more I look at it, they're going to be really, really tough to fit in. Paddock at 9,500. I don't know if he's going to be a guy I get to very often tonight, but just a 3.3 implied total against him in a pretty decent pitcher's park. Are you looking at Paddock at all on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's really talented. He clearly has upside. The Diamondbacks are a decent offense, but they're not one that I'm, super scared about, especially with someone like Paddock, who does have one of the best changeups in baseball. So you're not all that concerned about left-handed power against him. The price tag is fine. I think that, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't looked at, I haven't run crunches yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if I get more Soroka, and I wouldn't be surprised if I get more Paddock than each other. I think I'll get more Weaver than both just because he's cheaper. But Paddock has been going a little bit deeper in the games as well. He's thrown at least 90 pitches in 2 straight starts, 89 the one before that. So that's been good to see. Still not going like 100 plus, which kind of sucks at that price tag, but certainly has the upside. So yeah, any Paddock I get to, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm not really looking to a ton of bats on either side. If you are going to bats, would you just consider a Padres stack? They look pretty cheap. And if you are getting a ton of leverage on Weaver, if he's going to be 30+% owned, do you have any interest in that?
Yeah, I've been getting to the Padres a lot lately. It hasn't paid off outside of the other day. I won a tournament with Reyes and Machado, 2-man, but like the full stack hasn't really paid off. But there's just so much power in the lineup. You have to deal with those strikeouts. But Fernando Reyes is looking like the real deal. He showed flashes last year, and he's really started to put it together. We know how good Manny Machado is, and he just keeps being really cheap, especially on DraftKings, where he also has multi-position eligibility. Renfroe has monster power, and then you can kind of just fill in with cheaper guys like Hosmer, France, Myers. Hedges has some pop for a catcher. So they always just come in as one of my higher owned like cheap stacks because of how much power they have.
Yeah, Reyes, man, he's just been on fire. And then Machado's price refuses to come up on DraftKings. So, yeah, I don't have an issue with it, even though I'm not like actively seeking out the Padres. If I do get to some of them in my non-Weaver lineups, I'm not going to be too worried about it because there's just so much leverage, assuming Weaver continues to be chalky, which I think he will be. Man, we kind of flew through that.
One more thing to add about the Padres matchup. So Weaver, like the strikeout stuff's been really good. He's struck out 28.7% of righties this year, but he has given up some power. He's allowed a 193 ISO, 192 expected ISO, and that's something that it doesn't really surprise me because when you look at what he's throwing and the reasons that I think he's having success, his changeup, he's thrown 38% of the time to lefties with a 20% swing to strike percentage, but he's only thrown it a little under 10% of the time to righties. He's basically throwing fastballs and cutters to righties, which don't get as many swings and misses and, obviously get hit for a bit more power. So I do expect, while I think the strikeouts are real, I do expect him to give up more power to righties than lefties going forward, which sets up nicely for the Padres.
Yeah, I think that, man, I just have a hard time. 3.8 implied total, but the prices are just so cheap, and if he has been giving up power, like it'd be dumb to not consider at least a few bats against him.
I still think the more appealing way to approach it is to get like 2-mans or 3-mans in there. Yep. You probably don't need 5 Padres. It's kind of unlikely that Weaver blows up in this spot, but he certainly can give up a home run to Reyes and Renfroe or Reyes and Machado.
Awesome. All right, going back to lineup study quick before we close it out. I can't find an 8-game slate exactly, but I have a 7-gamer from what was this? Actually, from Saturday, so the day you baked. But this is actually the main slate, so the night slate for anyone that doesn't know. 7:05 start or 7:15 start. Anyways, I just wanted to look at kind of what the exposures were for a guy like Osmo and Tom I see in this tournament. So me and you both being 150 players, I thought it would be interesting to look at just kind of how heavy they're going on some of these guys on a 7 or 8 game slate. So this was actually the Strasburg pitching slate. And one thing I noticed with Alex's lineups, and you can put his exposures right on the screen compared to the field exposures right here. But if you look at Alex's, he had almost 90% Strasburg on this slate. And I know he was he was obviously one of the better plays, and he was heavily owned. But do you have an issue going like 90%? Like if you got 90% Corbin, 88.7% Corbin, would you be leaving that? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't really adjust my exposures all that much once I have enough stuff in place in my process that if I get to X amount of someone, I just kind of roll with it. As long as, if I see someone like popping up like that, I'll kind of make sure that I don't have some error in a projection for a similarly priced pitcher or something like that I would want to be getting more of. But assuming that I didn't input something wrong or, under project someone, I'm perfectly fine getting there.
So you're right up here. You were in the top 25. 21st was your best lineup in this tournament, actually. I just located you.
Oh, yeah.
Man, Marge Vicious. Yikes. I was all over him as well. So I feel the pain of that one. But, oh, man, Tom had 88% Marge Vicious as well. So I've got yours, Alex's, and Tom's.
He's so bad. I'm so glad they already sent him back to the minors.
Did they already sent him down?
Yeah, they sent him back to AA immediately after that.
He had like 2 strikeouts in the first inning, right? He thought it was smooth sailing, and then he just got blasted.
Yep. He cost me a bunch of money this year because I kept stacking against him because I knew he was terrible, and it never worked. And then I rostered him because pitching on that slate sucked so much, and he did what I figured he would do.
Yeah, the chalk bad pitcher. I should have just X'd him out of my player pool or unregged or something. But yeah, it's just interesting to see the different exposures between you guys. You guys all went pretty heavy on hitters. So like Tom had Scope at 47%, you had Scope at almost 50%, 48%. And then Alex had Buster Posey at 45%. In general, on an 8-game slate like this, what do you think is kind of a good cap, or what do you think is the most you would get of a hitter? I know it's easier to go more all in on pitchers because they're easier to predict, but what would be like a good number you have in your head as far as your highest hitting exposure?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends how stacks break down versus each other, but I know on some of these mid-range slates lately, I've been getting like you said, I had I think close to 50% scope. I had like 50% Crone that day. I've been getting really heavy on these slates on like 2 to 3 offenses, and not even intentionally. Not that I'm like forcing it, but just how it's been working out is that I tend to get like 2 or 3 offenses that I'm really heavy on. The Twins were one on Saturday, obviously, and then kind of mixing in some other spots. And if those teams hit, then obviously it works out. Like the Twins on this one, St. Louis on the early Saturday slate were both teams that I had like 50+%. Like I know I had like 60% the Young on the early Saturday slate. So it's been working out that way for me. It's scary because obviously there's so much volatility in hitters, but I'm fine with it coming out like that.
Yeah, and then compared to a guy like Brick 75, one of the better players in a ton of different sports, he had 45% Strasburg, 33% Baumgartner, 32% Canning, and then his highest hitter exposure was Austin Riley at 18%. So just a guy that goes way flatter. And I think I've studied him a little bit. He actually does this quite a bit, where he's just like no hitter above 20% on a slate like this. So a bunch of different strategies that can be profitable. Obviously, all very good players that I've got their exposures pulled up here. So yeah, that's interesting. That's just some of the features you can use with Lineup Study if you guys are looking to sign up. Promo code MLB Strategy gets you 50% off the first month. And then, as Lofty would say, come say hi to us in Slack when you get in there. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up this show, Adam?
No, I don't think so. Obviously, we'll have some more information on the deeper dive show with Lofty later. Perfect.
Go play on Yahoo today. It is the perfect day to get away from that terrible $6 on DraftKings, unless you're a baller like Adam.
Nope, I'm playing Yahoo today too.
All right, good luck tonight.